Hello, friends, and welcome to Page Chewing Comics and Manga. This is Pick of the Week, episode 21, and this week I have a co-host. I'm so happy that Mike. Thank you for coming by and hanging out with me this week.
Oh yeah, thanks so much, Steve. I've been an avid listener to this podcast, so I'm a huge fan.
Wow.
This is like a dream come true here. I've also been listening to your podcast. I watched a fair amount of some of your YouTube videos as well. My name is Mike. I'm a member of Page Chewing, and so I'm online there, and just real looking forward to the discussion today.
Nice. Well, I'm so glad you decided to join, because I've been wanting someone to kind of shoot ideas off of and get different perspectives, and so hopefully you can make it as often as you can. Of course, no pressure, but anytime. We'd love to have you. But for the listeners, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background with comics?
Yeah, sure. I was thinking about this recently. When I was younger, I think we're talking like the 1980s here. My sister and I used to walk to this comic store back home, and where my dad was living, and we would randomly pick up comics every few weeks or so. And she was like a huge fan of Archie.
Oh.
So I actually would read quite a few of the Archie comics, but then I would just pick up random things as a young person. And so I was trying to think of some of the titles. Like I remembered I was reading a lot of the superhero stuff. Mm-hmm. Back then. I didn't know it. I didn't know any better. I didn't even understand how comic book stores work. I was kind of intimidated, sometimes to think there's so much. But I would read like Fantastic Four and Iron Man. I guess that's Marvel, but yeah, I was a fan of Iron Man, and I'm trying to think of X-Men. Mm-hmm. And then I remembered this one comic, and I don't think it was ever super popular, but it was ROM, R-O-M. It was like this, like a human and a robot. I looked it up recently, and I don't think there was ever a lot of issues published, but that for some reason that stuck in my head. It's like this he was like a white robot knight or something.
Huh.
Anyway. But it was, these are the kind of memories you have as a kid. And then, so I probably accumulated a bunch of random comics over the years. Oh, Spider-Man I did as well. So I'm sure I'm leaving a few out. And then I kind of didn't do it for a while. And then in high school, I had a friend that was really into comics, and he had a pull list, and I would read some of his stuff. And then I didn't really get back into it until many years later, like a decade or two, a few decades later, I started getting back into it. And I actually read, I've not been a big superhero comic person really. And I'd be willing to venture again. And I kind of, based on what I've heard from you, it kind of depends on the writer a little bit, or going back for different arcs or what have you. Like I know you're gonna talk about this at some point, but I did pick up the Alan Moore Swamp Thing recently, all of those trade paperbacks. Yep.
On the shelf. Yeah,
I'm super excited. I loved Watchmen, and some of his other work. So I read now like more like back issue paperbacks, but I've not, until I listened to you, and this is hopefully a good segue, I didn't really understand, like when you could kind of go in and just pick things that were new because of that continuity issue. I was always overwhelmed. Like there's all these, there's these characters that have, 50 years of what,
Yeah.
You're like, where do you start? So when you were saying, I just go in and and I look for number ones or recent issues, and I kind of get started at the beginning, and I was like, oh, I can do that, and you know, did that a little bit, you know, and anyway, so that's kind of my story, and I just the other thing is it's so cool that we still have like these small little comic book stores. Yeah. There's one near where I live. That's I think it's been there as long as I've been alive. Mm-hmm. So getting closer to 50 years, and it's kind of, I don't want to say it's a hole in the wall. It's not, but it's a small little place. And the people there are just so passionate about what they do. And it's just, you know, anyway, that's kind of my story.
Nice. But it sounds like we have kind of similar stories because like, you know, I wasn't reading for a long time, and it's, you know, the comic book shops, physical shops. I mean, physical anything is on, you know, kind of an endangered species now, you know, so I like being able to support them and hopefully keep them around longer, because I like having physical media. Probably too much, but, you know. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So those of you who are new, who haven't listened before, my name's Steve, and like we were just discussing, I'm getting back into comics after a long hiatus, and it can be intimidating, Mike, like you said, to get back into the hobby and find something that works, or because I pick up like even like a Batman book, and it's like, who are these people and what is going on? Like, it's just, there's so much continuity to have to keep up with that it can be daunting. So yeah, I'm glad you could make it.
Oh yeah. This is, you know, as we were talking a little bit, and yeah, so I tried to pick some of the books that you read, actually, but I'm still learning. Like, is some of them have already been sold out, or so we're not overlapping as much. But I did pick a few books that you had already covered, and then a few new ones. Nice. So I have about 4 that I could talk about today.
Very cool. So yeah, but it's great, even if it's a book I've already taught. It's great to have a different perspective on it. So yeah, I'm anxious to hear what you thought of the ones I've already discussed. Which ones you picked up. Hopefully you like them. But it's always nerve-wracking for you to recommend something and then someone pick it up and it's like, well, I hope they like it. You know, I hope they don't hate it. But so yeah, I have 6 books this week. So Mike and I will go back and forth on our books, and we'll finish with our top picks of the week at the very end, the last 2. So I guess we'll go ahead and get into it. And we were just talking about superhero books and capes and cowls and not being that into it. And of course, you know, I'm going to try to pick up at least one superhero book, I think, just to try, I guess, even though I kind of feel like it's a waste. Like it's very, I don't even want to say hit and miss. It's very rare that I like a superhero book, but I did pick up Carnage #1, mainly because it's by Torunn Grønbekk, who was writing Red Sonja over at Dark Horse. Carnage #1, of course, is by Marvel. I know very little about Carnage other than, you know, the Venom, the symbiote kind of thing, Spider-Man, Nemesis. But this one I was surprised with because, like I said, I'm not familiar with Carnage, but this is a version of Carnage that it's almost becoming like a godlike. He's ascending to a different level. He's becoming almost like a godlike figure. It deals a lot with, you know, it touches on religion and worship, but not the type of worship I was expecting. It's not so much religious worship. It's almost celebrity worship and technology and modern life. And it was much more graphic and violent than I was expecting, which, you know, I didn't mind too much, but I was surprised, being a Marvel book. So I like what they're doing with it. I think also has some cosmic horror vibes to it because of the symbiote and it being an alien. So I was surprised that I was into this one. I mean, it didn't like blow my socks off, but I enjoyed it. I think it was okay. But it's one that I'll I'll pick up the second issue for and keep an eye on it.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I gotta admit, I lost track of Spider-Man, and
Yeah.
Carnage is a relatively new character for me. How is he different from Venom? This is an embarrassing question.
No, sadly, I don't know exactly how either. But
I was Googling.
Yeah, we're going in together. We're in the same. I think it is I can't remember exactly, but I think it's either like an offshoot of Venom, or I think it's of the same symbiote alien thing. I guess I'll have to look into that, but I'm not sure, honestly. So
Okay.
yeah, don't feel bad. I have no idea.
So the real comic book listeners are gonna.
Yeah, they're probably yelling at their phones right now, but yeah, we're come on by and tell us about Carnage if you're listening.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Should I talk about one of mine?
Yeah, go for it. What did you have on your list? What was the first one?
So the first one I'll talk about is I think you covered it last week or the previous episode, which is Alien by Marvel. I know that you're an Alien fan.
Yeah.
I was definitely for a long time. I think I've seen most of the films, but it's my first time venturing into the Alien as a comic. Mm-hmm. So I got to say it's beautiful. It's a beautiful book. I should mention it's by Marvel. I think the main writer I had in front of me is Declan Shalvey.
Yeah.
And it's the artwork was beautiful. It brought me back. I thought, I liked how it has a little bit of flashbacks. Mm. So there's a page where they talk about the history of this corporation, which I think you already covered. And that I probably didn't. I needed a refresher on, so I actually appreciated that. But I think it takes place between the first movie and the second movie, but I could be way off. I tried to piece where it's taking place. There's two different time periods. And I think, like you said, I don't really have too much more to add. It's nothing really new per se. This is not a spoiler really, but in the beginning, they're in like an Antarctica or ice, very very cold climate, and I was like, oh, that's a really different spin to me on this. But no, I think overall it was okay. I'm not sure if I will continue or not. It was all right. Yeah, I'm happy with it. But
yeah, I think I talked about this a little bit, but I wanted to ask you about it. Being a fan of the movies, does it bother you that the comics are outside of canon, that they kind of happen independently? Does that temper your enjoyment at all of the stories?
Huh. Yeah, I didn't recognize any of the characters at all, but I thought maybe I had forgotten some of the names. But does it bother me? I don't. I think my take on this is, if it's out of canon, it's something new. It should be doing something different, maybe, but not ideally something that maybe reboots the franchise in a way that's has a great story or whatever, a new concept. So it didn't really bother me per se. I think it's just I didn't find it. It was just fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. What did you think?
I don't know. It used to bother me when something's done in canon, because you take your time to read it. Because being such a big fan of the franchise, I look for familiar characters or storylines, and I guess I'm starting to appreciate that more. It's just a story for fun. But if it doesn't impact the timeline, it's kind of like the Aliens and Predator thing, where it's outside of the timeline and it doesn't make any sense with the rest of the movies. But I guess you just go on and turn your brain off and not try not to think about it. So I'm trying to be better about just turning my brain off and just being like, this is what it is. But yeah, you mentioned Wayland Yutani and the company. I just think you'd figure by now they'd have a different strategy to get the aliens. So I don't know.
There's some beautiful, artwork though. I did appreciate, but I was just looking at a spread here of a corpse.
Yeah.
Anyway, with his chest blown out.
Yeah, I agree with you though. I did like the frigid and the Arctic scene and the kind of the spin they had on that with the aliens. I thought that was kind of neat. So, So the second book I had on my list was one that I picked up the first issue of this. It's Cyberpunk 2077 XOXO issue 2. And I'm going to completely butcher these names, so I apologize ahead of time. By Bartosz Stybor and Jacob Rebelka. This is by Dark Horse. This one's really strange. It's really weird. I don't know if I'm missing context from the game or from the universe or from those storylines or what. It's a unique way to tell a story. It's like a twisted love story that bounces around. There's not a whole lot of substance. It's kind of light. It's fun, but I wonder what's going on. Like, I don't know. It's, I like the artwork. It's kind of like it's a different way to tell a story. Cause the artwork does a lot of the heavy lifting. There's not a lot of dialogue, not a lot of, kind of guiding you through it for someone like me who's not familiar with it, but I'm not sure why. But I'm going to keep reading this series. It's just so different that I just can't help but appreciate the kind of spin they have, the different take on it. I just think I appreciate the originality or like the different spin they're putting on it. So I'll keep reading it.
I have one question for you. Is there an anime?
I don't know. I should look into that because I've seen there's other books like novelizations, and maybe it's part of that somehow. Maybe it's tied into to the rest of the world that I just don't know. It kind of feels like I'm missing something. Like there's something that there's like a joke that I'm not in on. It kind of feels like that. Like there's something that I'm missing. So, but maybe, I should look into that.
I bring it up because I think I watched something with that name on Netflix. And it was more of an anime style. Trying to think what happened. I didn't get into it for whatever reason. There's a lot of times when I try a series and I don't feel like I have time or whatever. But it wasn't terrible. I do remember it being pretty violent.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 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 It's pretty violent.
Like I think trying to remember somebody. There's something about somebody jacking some type of technology into his head, or anyway, I'm not. That's what I remember from.
That might be what I'm missing.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe some backstory there.
Yeah.
So I could talk about the second book that I will mention today is called Weird Work. It's Image, and it's from Jordan Thomas and Shaky Kane. This is issue number 1. However, I'm thinking not totally understanding that it wasn't brand new because I saw it on these spinner racks. So my assumption was, these must be relatively new. This one I think goes back to July 2023, so not that old, but the cover appealed to me, but I did page through it a little bit before I decided to purchase it. And one thing about this is the characters are all different colors. They're all they might have an animal head, or they're they're vibrant colors. One character has the head of a pig, but one character has like a devil's head, and there's no mention about it that these people are all kinds of different. It's a cornucopia of different races, and you don't even know if people are aliens or there's some kind of weird superhero or whatever. And one of the main characters kind of looks like Dr. Manhattan, so he's all blue. But there's no mention of, oh, he's, so and so from Planet X or whatever. But so that the concept to me, and I like stuff that can be very fantastical. I can get into that, not always, but if it's kind of like blowing your mind, and it can be like, well, this is just nuts. This does have that. But it's kind of a detective. It's a detective story, which I've not always been as into. I'm not opposed to it. And that's fine. I guess I didn't realize it, but on the cover they're holding these one red person and one blue person are holding a gun. So the colors might be symbolic because they're the kind of police detective characters. So one of the thing I will say I might continue with it. I'm still thinking about it. The one thing I didn't love is the dialogue seemed kind of dated.
Oh, okay.
And it's trying to be funny. And I love, there are a lot of, I would have mentioned earlier, but there are comics that I've read that are more like on the humorous side, like Dan Clowes, is an example, but it didn't always work for me. I know that's come up for you. And there were cases where they named characters things that were kind of strange. So I don't think this is a big issue to the story, but I just remember one character was named like Hypocrite or something. And you're like, that's it's not. Anyway, just to say, I don't want to give too much away, but the language is almost like it's from a noir film, but it is kind of exaggerated. It's just, it's wild. So that's, it's appealing to me. It's taking place in another world. It could be in the future, probably is in the future, but not our future.
Yeah.
And, like the first page is, there's like a giant peanut man skyscraper in a city. Like it's pretty wild. It's just, and I kind of like that. Anyway.
So it is it's a little bit, is it that the kind of book where it's a wink and a nod, or is it taking itself seriously, or does it know that it's being a little goofy with the big peanut?
I think it knows. Yeah, I think it knows it's being goofy, but yet there's serious. There's dramatic events, that take place. So it's almost why it doesn't fit. Like it would be if it was a little bit more subtle. If it wasn't like every page there's some kind of joke or whatever.
Yeah,
it's like you're taking a lot of swings with it already being completely nuts.
Yeah.
So I could go on and on. There's just all kinds of wild characters. There's people with 6 arms. It definitely is fantasy, though. There definitely is fantasy or science fiction too. Elements of both. It's like all over the place.
So you're on the fence on whether you'll continue?
I am on the fence.
I was just looking it up on the Image site. It looks like there's a trade paperback scheduled for February. So it looks like that'll collect the 4 issues. So it looks like it's a 4 issue run.
Okay.
Yeah. And it looks like, it looks like it's finished. It looks like it finished up in October, but the trade paperback, the collection will be out in February. So.
Yeah, I need to look more closely at the the issue date.
No, it's fine. No, I've done that too, where you just grab something that looks interesting and it ends up being not too recent, but No, it's cool. So the let's see, my third book is one that I really like the cover on, and I'm yeah. So we'll get into it. But the third book is Lunar Lodge. It is by Tyler Markeka, Mirko Kolak, Brian Valenza, and Frank Sechovic. I'm butchering names. I apologize again. This one, it starts off almost like a horror book. There's some mystery going on. The artwork again does a lot of the storytelling. There's not a ton of dialogue. I was a little bit confused with who is who because there's a few people that are on the page, and there's some of the people look like each other. They look like another person. So I wasn't sure who it's referring to. So I'm not quite following the story. I'm not quite sure what's going on. So I have to go back and recheck faces and dialogue to see, because I felt like I was missing something, but I think it might just be the way the story is being told. The artwork is great, even if I was a little bit confused. I think it's probably intentional, but I'm intrigued by the story. I think it has there's enough mystery and character work going on that I'll give it a shot. I'll continue to the next issue, but yeah, I think it's one that I'll keep an eye on. It has, like I said, some mystery, some horror, and some looks like maybe some grief horror. I'm a sucker for grief horror, so I'll keep going.
Is it it's not sci-fi or the word lunar? I don't know, threw me off maybe, but
I was just looking at the cover, and it looks like it may be, because I was wondering that too, whether it's like a science fiction kind of thing, but I think I see vampires on the cover.
Okay.
Which isn't a spoiler for the book, obviously, because it's on the cover, but I think that's why it might be called Lunar Lodge, vampire or maybe zombie, but yeah, I'm not too sure. There's something going on with this lodge, obviously, but the characters, like I said, I'm a little bit confused. So, but I'm sure it'll become more clear as we go, hopefully.
Okay. So now I only have two left. So the next book is another one that you covered probably 2 or 3 podcasts ago, which is Red Light by Sarah Cho. I believe it's AWA or AWA Studios. And like you said, Steve, it's really fantastic work. I think you had enjoyed it. I like that I like that we're covering today's issues in clearly a futuristic world. It's sci-fi. The main character, you don't necessarily know what her situation is. I think you'd mentioned it before, but she is like a sex worker, but she's like an AI. I think that I wouldn't go into too much more depth, but just all of the complications of that and ethical questions that brings up. I think, I think it's a really good table setter, because we kind of, we learn that the world is opening up a little bit for this character, and I'm now blanking on her name. Is it Lacey? I believe the main character is Lacey. And so I'm looking forward. I should comment quickly on the artwork is excellent. I had not read anything else by Sarah Cho. I thought I might have recognized a few of the other work that she had done, but again, the writing is good, and just the concept is very intriguing. So I will continue with this one. I think I don't mean to just agree with everything
No.
you say or whatever, but I felt very similarly, if I remember what you said. It's not necessarily what I would say my main pick of the week, but would be almost impossible. It's very difficult to decide. So this is up there.
Nice.
Yeah,
I'm glad you enjoyed it. Yeah, it's that was one of the best first issues I think I've read in a while. Yeah, it has a lot of potential. And like you said, it's dealing with modern day issues in a science fiction setting, and it's good to. I think it's nice to have modern day issues told through a different lens like that, because you can play with some of the ideas and concepts and it not seem so close to home, but it can still be thought provoking.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I'm glad you enjoyed it. So I will do two quickly, and then we can go into our picks of the week, because you have one more, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll hit on these two really quick, and then we'll do our picks of the week. The next one is one that I was on the fence on to pick up, which is The Devil That Wears My Face, #2. This is by David Pepose, Alex Cormack, and Justin Birch. This is by Mad Cave. I was on the fence after the first issue. I wasn't really sure if I was going to pick it up, but it was there, and I decided to give it a shot. I like the artwork. The story just didn't work for me. It was hard to make a possession story feel fresh when so many of them are so similar, because you kind of know. I mean, it's kind of a formula. Like you kind of know what's going to happen. There are a few differences. There are a few things that they're doing a little differently, but making a possession story, in some cases even just horror, making it impactful and scary and unsettling in this format is hard, because you don't have the visuals, you don't have the sounds, you don't have. It's harder, I think, to make those kind of stories really hit home in this format in comics. So I won't be continuing this one. It's just not bringing anything really new. It didn't really catch me, but the artwork is really good. I wouldn't say that it's bad. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't capture me. But if you're a horror buff or you really like possession, then you might want to check it out. So I'll hit on one more, and then we'll do our picks of the week. This was a tough one for me, because I went back and forth with which one would be my pick, and I try really hard to mix it up a little bit. This was tough. So I will say my runner-up for my pick is The Ribbon Queen #5. This is by Garth Ennis and Jason Burrows. This is published by AWA. And I've said before, and I'll say again, anything Jason Burrows and or Garth Ennis does, I am on board for it. So I'm trying to be partial. I'm trying to be, be open-minded. But the world in this one and story continues to grow and expand in ways I didn't expect it to. I found myself lamenting the fact that this is only an 8-issue run, because there's just so much story. I think it's developing at a pace where I'm not sure how they'll wrap it up. And I feel like there has to be more after this, because there's so much in this issue, especially. We have a lot more history on what the Ribbon Queen is and what it means. And I feel like there's not enough time to wrap it up. I have faith that they'll do it, but I really hope there's more after this. I really hope this is a start of, maybe we'll get like a side story or something, more background on it. But so I say I'm lamenting the fact that it's an 8-issue run, because I like it so much. I mean that in a good way. But I say this every time I bring up the Ribbon Queen is, no one does body horror like Jason Burrows. No one does that kind of artwork like he does. It's realistic enough to where it really makes you feel unsettled. And it just the facial expressions, the body horror stuff. You can't beat it. So if you're into that kind of thing, it's not for everyone. Body horror is not for everyone. But it's not all body horror. It's not all shock. It's not all. It doesn't depend on those elements. It's just part of the story, and that's what I really like about it. Is that it doesn't lean on it. It's there, but it's there to tell the story about the Ribbon Queen and the story behind that. So it's not all about just shocking you. So that's my runner up, the Ribbon Queen number 5.
I gotta admit, I don't think I got any horror this time, per se. Makes me, I'd love, maybe next time, I'll pick something up. It's a little bit more on the horror side. I'm intrigued.
Nice.
So Garth Ennis, did he do The Preacher or Preacher? Yeah. Okay. So I've read that. I don't know if I completed that, but I'm in the process of reading that. I think because I checked it out from the library. So, yeah, no, definitely. For some reason, I thought I didn't realize he was still active, and that's great.
Yeah.
When they say it's an 8, this is just kind of a basic question. When it's like this is 1 of 8 or 2 of 8 or whatever, when it wraps up the 8 issues, do we automatically assume that there won't be that's the end of the run? Like or is there sometimes when they might start the continuation? I do another 1 of 8 or whatever.
Yeah, I think I'm not sure that it's ever really decided. I think a lot of it depends on the sales and how well it does in the reception of it. But I think they plan on, like, for instance, like a 4-issue run on Weird Work. They'll do 4 issues and they'll kind of gauge what the interest is and decide whether or not to go from there, or to do like a spin-off or something else in that world. But I don't know it's too often that we get, especially in creator-owned stuff, don't know that we get too many ongoings that just go on until they finish the story. It could be like 100 issues. So it's never a guarantee that they'll do something else, but I really hope we get something else.
Yeah, like a newbie question. So
no, that's fine.
Yeah. Should I do then? I could do my pick of the week, I guess.
Yeah, go for it. What was your choice this week?
Yeah, and I should say it pretty much was neck and neck with Red Light, but so I picked up the Holy Roller, which the title isn't super catchy, but I saw a few of the authors. One is Rick Remender, and another is Andy Samberg from Saturday Night Live. And then I think he did Brooklyn Nine-Nine, which I didn't watch that much. But so the cover is intriguing in that you see a bowling ball. So it's kind of got a little bit of Big Lebowski vibes in a way, almost like a callback early in the issue. But you're like, okay, there's some kind of a superhero type guy that uses a bowling ball. So that's and it this also has humor. And then the humor was, I thought, pretty good. I actually laughed a bit. Laughed out loud. So essentially, we learn about this young man, and his father is a bowler, and we just learn a little bit about this young man, and then we cut to the present day when he's an adult, and he happens upon this bowling ball, and it's just interesting things happen. It just kind of sets up the story, and makes me want to keep reading. Just the way it was set up, and like I said, there is some nostalgia as well, because the beginning is like a flashback to the 1980s when I was growing up, and they're playing arcade games and stuff. So a little bit almost like Stranger Things, a little bit that kind of nostalgia. But then there's these other elements of, and I already mentioned I wasn't like a big superhero guy, so I couldn't even tell from the cover that it was. I was just like, oh, I'll check it out. And then I think because I maybe a sucker for Saturday Night Live's a little bit. So I thought I'd give it a chance. And I should mention that this is also by Image, and I think this came out in November, so this month, so relatively new. It's not as graphic. I noticed that it's like teen plus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to read these kinds of things, but it's a special. I don't know if it's giant generator within Image, so that may be a special like Rick Remender thing. That I'm not as familiar with, but maybe you knew something about it. But it's my pick of the week. The Holy Roller, about a superhero type of person with a bowling ball.
You had me a Big Lebowski, so I'll
I
check
mean,
this
that's
out.
one of my favorite films of all time.
Yeah.
So I can't.
Yeah.
There is a callback very early on to another character. I won't say, or maybe. And it's not. I mean, I think you have to know the film enough. The one thing I will say is some of the people's faces looked like actors that I knew. So one of the characters looked like Judd Hirsch, from Taxi. And he's been in many other things. So I was like, did they model it on him, or was it like you said about Cyberpunk? Is there something I'm missing? Was this some kind of a? Is there something some other continuity that I missed? Anyway.
Yeah. Does it? Whenever I know that photo referencing was, I think it was bigger about 10 years ago. I think more people did like use photo references for characters, and it always took me out of the story because when someone looks like someone else, it just throws me off instead of it just being a random face that I've never seen before, or at least isn't so close to someone else. It takes me out of the story. So I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, I would say that would be maybe one of the gripes. But again, if it was humor that was not as it was a little bit more tongue in cheek. It was within the dialogue, not as overt maybe that. And like I said, I laughed. So that's big for me.
It's tough to do humor and horror too. It's tough to do in the comics, I think. But you mentioned kind of like an '80s throwback, and are you to the point now? Because so much popular media now post Stranger Things is going to like an '80s callback, and it seems like it's the thing to do now. Are you to the point where you're tired of that? Or are you still on board with the '80s stuff?
I will say, because what happened here is something I actually lived.
Oh, okay.
So some of the Stranger Things stuff I didn't, it's not necessarily, but there was something very specific in here that I lived through. I could mention it because it's not really a spoiler, but I don't want to. So like it's a character that's in an arcade game while his father is bowling. That is exactly what my dad used to bowl, and I would play video games. I was not into that. I always had my hand out for quarters, and I would be playing Dig Dug or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's what happens at the beginning of this story. So that's why it got me. So, but if it's something that's just nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, this one specifically was my own personal lived kind of nostalgia, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think that's when nostalgia works. Works best when it's personal. When it's not so much like a pop culture, like music, or it doesn't call back on entertainment so much that it just calls back on just everyday life, like going to the bowling alley and playing a video game, or things that you experienced when you're in that era in that age. I think that's when it works the most because it seems so personal for you, even though most people in that time period probably experienced something like that. It just seems different, just hits different.
Mm-hmm. Are you getting tired of the nostalgia? Yeah.
No,
nostalgia push.
I don't mind it. I just think like you said, if it's nostalgia for nostalgia's sake, it's different. But I don't know that we're there yet. I think we're getting close. But I just think instead of trying to make everything Stranger Things, just make a good story in the 80s and it'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Could I make one quick comment? What I think it is a little bit marketing. It's marketing in a way, or if we're doing a story that is maybe targeted more to younger people, how can we also make it interesting for their parents or a wider audience? That's a little bit of my skeptical, or maybe the way I see the world or whatever, but that's not always doing it for me either, because it has to be, like you said, about the story. So
No, that's a great. I think you're onto something there. I think it's if you appeal to the 80s, you want to capitalize on the 80s nostalgia, and you get the parents who, we want to relive those years too. So no, it makes sense. Yeah. So so my pick this week was close, like I said, with Ribbon Queen. But this one, I just thought it was different, and I just like that it was a different take on vampires. But it is Mortal Terror #1. This is by Christopher Golden, Tim Leben, Peter Bertag, and Chris O'Halloran. Sorry, Chris, if I butchered your name. I'm butchering names all day today. This is by Dark Horse Comics. This, like I said, this is a different take on a vampire story. Instead of the vampires being the monsters and like hiding in the shadows, it's their world, and the humans are the boogeymen. The humans are kind of like a story that's kind of like no one believes they exist anymore, and the humans are striking back. They're mortals are living in a vampire world and are almost the boogeymen. Some vampires in the society don't remember or don't believe that they exist. But, we have some other references to some literary classics and characters, which I thought was kind of neat. I hope they don't lean on it too heavily, because they're classic characters for a reason, but I hope they don't depend on those things too much for the story. But so far, I thought it was really neat. I'm excited to see where it goes. But the humans are almost like rebels that are fighting back against the vampires, and where some vampires don't believe that the humans even exist. And so I think there's some, you wonder, some vampires are, there's a few who want to be mortal again, and they're kind of crazy. They're considered to be crazy. And so yeah, I like the different take on it. I thought it was interesting. There's a film with, I forget the name of it off the top of my head. It's, I'll find it. But there's a film with vampires that have kind of taken over, and the humans are living in the shadows. It reminded me of that film with Ethan Hawke. I will look it up right now. But yeah, that was my pick of the week for this week.
Sounds really good. Mortal Terror, you said.
Mm-hmm. That film is Daybreakers. It's a science fiction action horror film, and it is kind of the same so far. Seems kind of almost the same. It's in Daybreakers. We're in a more futuristic setting, but in this book we're in a more a more gas lamp type of setting. So I really I thought it was neat. I just hope the only concern I have is that they lean on the literary classics too much, because there's some hints, but I hope they don't lean on it too heavily. But other than that, I thought it was really neat. As a little bit, it's neat to have a different perspective on things.
That's I'll say that one sounds intriguing. I like it when I think we have to look at the humans, sometimes, and be like, yeah, we especially these kind of classic, these gothic horror, but where the humans are always the hero or whatever. So I just love to turn it on its head. I would see if I can check that one out.
Nice. Cool. Yeah, it's yeah, I enjoyed it. It narrowly beat out the Ribbon Queen for me, so it was close. But yeah, well, cool. Thank you, Mike, for coming by this week. I've been wanting to someone to join me because it's a little lonely doing it by yourself every week.
I mean, I will say you do a great job on your own. But I'm very happy to do it, and so yeah, you've inspired me. I'm still kind of getting into it. I'm still even understanding how do you like order comics but we have some real nice people at the local shop where I live, and they're just these older gentlemen that are just like, they know all the titles, they know every author, they know where to find it. The place is a little bit difficult to navigate, and then I will just share one little anecdote for the recent like Black Friday or whatever. They had this sale for all these back issues, so there were many boxes of older back issues, and I was just like, and they were all half off. And I was just like, I just don't know where to start.
Yeah.
I don't know. But I thought about it. But that is when I picked up. They had another sale for the kind of trade paperbacks. So I picked up a couple of those, and they were just overjoyed when I made this pretty good size purchase.
Nice.
Anyway.
Yeah, gotta support the brick and mortars before they don't go away for sure. But yeah, hopefully you can make it next week. Would love to have you back if I didn't scare you away.
Oh yeah, I'll see what I can do. Thank you so much. This has been a real pleasure.
Yeah, I'm glad you made it. And so for people wanting to connect with you, where's the best place to find you?
I apologize for if there's any background noise, but I'm Mike M on Page Twoing. If you want to hook up with me.
It's fine.
Yeah, and that's pretty much it. If anybody, I'm not really on other like social media or whatever.
Yeah.
But no, if we make any mistakes or there's the lingo, let us know.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure they'll correct us. Yeah, I'm sure they won't be shy. But yeah, or if anyone else would like to join us, I mean, just check out the forum and come by and talk about your favorite books of the week. But yeah, you can find me on pagetwing.com. Just like Mike said, we have a great little forum there, nice little community there. So come by and say hello. Love to chat with you. And we are going to be reading. We just decided today. We just discussed Night Fever earlier today with some friends, and then we'll be discussing The Fade Out here soon. We don't have a date yet, so if you want to read The Fade Out with us, would like to read along, we'll have dates hopefully soon, and we'll let you know when that's going to happen. So cool. Thanks again, Mike, and we will hope everyone has a great week, and we will talk to everyone very soon.
Thank you.